When the rude millionaire grabbed her by the waist and pulled her close, her soul trembled. It wasn't just the touch, but the intensity in his eyes, as if everything around them came to a stop. He was mysterious, irresistible, his gaze intense, wrapped in mystery and desire. But what happened next is no one could have imagined. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments. Where are you listening from? Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Kate felt restless that night. Emily's mansion, with its large windows and long hallways, seemed unnervingly quiet, as if the world around her had slowed down, waiting for something to happen. It wasn't usual for her to feel this way. Normally she loved the peace and solitude, but tonight something felt out of place. She couldn't sleep, so she got out of bed, unable to stay there alone with her thoughts. The clock on the wall read 3 a.m. Kate quickly threw on the robe she had left on the chair and left her room. Her footsteps echoed softly in the hallways. The shadows seemed to stretch with every step she took, creating an air of mystery. She made her way to the kitchen for a glass of water, the closest and most accessible place. But as she crossed the kitchen door, something made her stop immediately. Liam. Emily's brother was there, sitting alone at the table staring into nothingness. The soft moonlight pouring through the open windows illuminated his face in an almost ethereal way, making him even more mysterious. His deep blue eyes were fixed on some distant point. Kate felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, but before she could even think about moving, he saw her. Liam didn't move. For a moment they stood there, just staring at each other, the tension in the air building between them. Kate didn't know what to expect. He was the kind of man everyone talked about, but no one truly knew. Imposing, distant, with a reputation for being irresistible, yet unattainable. At 30, a billionaire marked by his own mystery and scandals, he seemed distant from everything and everyone. But now he was here, looking directly at her, with an intensity she had never experienced before. Kate couldn't resist. Her eyes were drawn to him, and something inside her, something she couldn't control, wanted to know more. She moved closer without saying a word. Liam slowly got up, his movements deliberate, as if calculating every second of contact. When she was close enough, he grabbed her by the waist, his fingers pressing firmly against her skin. Kate's reaction was immediate. A shiver ran down her spine, and her heart raced. He was so close that she could feel his warm breath on her neck. "Kate." Liam's voice was low, carrying an intensity that made her shoulders tense. The way he said her name, as if it were a sentence, made her body vibrate. She felt her stomach flip, but couldn't pull away. "You're scaring me." Kate tried to step back, but he kept her firmly in place, not pressing any further, but also not letting go. She could feel his strength in every part of her body, as if he were the storm and she was the calm he wanted to control. Liam leaned in a little, his face just inches from hers. His eyes never left her, as though he could see something beyond what Kate was showing, as if he could see her entire soul. "You're not like the others." The phrase was a whisper, and the intensity with which he said it almost made Kate lose her voice. She didn't know how to respond. Her chest was tight, and his words seemed to echo in her mind. What did he mean by that? What did he see in her? "I don't understand." She took a deep breath, trying to collect her thoughts. She didn't want to be there, but something in her, something visceral, stopped her from pushing him away completely. He drew her in a way she couldn't explain. Liam seemed to understand her internal conflict because he released her. Not completely, but enough to give her space to regain control of the situation. He watched her with eyes that spoke more than words could express. Kate felt her own breath quicken. She should move away, run, but something in the way he looked at her made her hesitate. She didn't know what was happening to her, but her mind was full of questions. Why was he like this? Why was there so much tension between them? What did he see in her? "That's not what I expected," she said, breaking the silence that had formed between them. Her voice was softer now, as if she herself was trying to understand what had just happened. She knew something had changed, but she didn't know how to handle it, or him. Liam moved closer again, once again with the calmness that seemed controlled. "What did you expect, Kate?" His voice was low and smooth, but loaded with an intensity that made his words feel more profound than simply spoken. I don't know. She turned toward the door, her mind in complete turmoil. He hadn't done anything wrong, but she felt as though he had somehow. He was there, so close, yet so distant at the same time. What did he want from her? What did she want from him? He stepped away, leaving the question hanging in the air. This isn't over, Kate. The phrase sounded like both a promise and a threat. And what she didn't know was that in that moment, she was already irreversibly involved. Kate was back in the kitchen, as if her body had switched to autopilot. She didn't know how she ended up there after what had just happened, but her steps had led her to the same place without her thinking about it. Liam's touch was still fresh on her skin, and his voice echoed in her mind. "You're not like the others." It was a simple phrase, but there was something deeply unsettling about it. Kate leaned against the counter, trying to process everything that had just happened. Never in her life had she imagined being in a situation like this, with a man like Liam, a mysterious, arrogant billionaire who seemed to live in a world completely different from hers. She was lost in her thoughts, until she heard his footsteps approaching. Liam walked into the kitchen, as if the world around him was made to be conquered. His presence filled the space with a palpable tension, and Kate knew she could no longer escape the situation. "Are you running away from me, Kate?" His voice was loaded with something she couldn't quite identify, but it made her heart race. He was there, closer than she could have ever imagined. His eyes were fixed on her, studying every reaction, every breath. Kate didn't know what to do, and that made her feel even more uncomfortable. She tried to look away, but she couldn't. His magnetism pulled her in like a magnet. Something in her chest stirred, something she hadn't known existed, but that was now taking over everything. She had never felt anything like this, and it scared her deeply. "I don't know what you want from me," Kate finally spoke, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. She didn't want to give in to this desire, didn't want to lose herself in this inexplicable chemistry that had sprung up between them, but something in her body was already yielding, without her being able to control it. Liam stepped closer slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. With each step, Kate felt the pressure mounting, the tension growing. Her body was rebelling, wanting to be close to him, while her mind fought against this impulse. "I'm not asking anything from you, Kate," he said, now just inches away from her, his words like a whisper against her skin. "Just, understand one thing. What's happening between us cannot be ignored. Not for me." Kate looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and desire. She wanted to step away, wanted to escape that overwhelming sensation, but something held her back. When their gazes met, the world around them disappeared. There was no one else. There was nothing else, only the two of them. It was as if the air had become thick and warm. Before she could think about stepping away, Liam grabbed her by the neck, his fingers firm yet gentle. He pulled her closer, until their bodies were almost touching. Kate felt his warmth, the intense scent of his perfume, and her heart raced. She was on fire inside, and the desire to pull away was replaced by an urgent need to feel more, to give in to what was happening. Liam tilted his head toward her, and the first kiss happened. It wasn't a soft kiss, nor a planned kiss. It was explosive, filled with urgency and repressed desire. Kate almost lost her balance, her body surrendering to Liam's touch, as if he had the power to control all of her senses. Their lips met, and something deep, something primal, awakened inside her. She had never kissed anyone before, never felt anything so intense and real. But in that moment, all she knew was that there was no going back. Liam's kiss was full of intensity and passion, and Kate didn't know whether to stop or to let herself be carried away. Her body was on fire, and she couldn't think straight. It was as if everything around them had disappeared, and only that kiss, that moment, existed. The desire pulsed between them, an irresistible force that brought them together in a way Kate couldn't comprehend. When he finally pulled away, Kate was breathless, her heart pounding uncontrollably. She looked at him, speechless, her body still trembling from the intensity of the kiss. He watched her, his eyes fixed on her as if studying her reaction, waiting for something from her. But Kate didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. She was completely lost. "I knew you weren't like the others," Liam said, his voice deep but with a touch of softness. "You won't run from me, Kate, not now." Kate wanted to run, wanted to escape that moment, but her body wouldn't obey. She was trapped, and it terrified her. What was happening to her? Why couldn't she pull away from him? She had never imagined that something as simple as a kiss could change everything, but now she was facing a truth she couldn't ignore. She wanted more. She wanted more of Liam, more of that desire that was consuming everything inside her. She slowly pulled away, her gaze still locked on his. She needed space, needed to understand what was happening, but a part of her knew that there was no turning back. Something had been awakened, and now she didn't know how to control it. The days that followed passed slowly, as if the world around Kate had transformed into a thick, dense fog. Every movement, every word, seemed laden with a deeper meaning, and she knew it all had to do with the kiss, with the tension, with Liam. Although they both avoided any physical contact, there was something inevitable between them, a silent game, where their glances said more than words ever could. Liam watched her constantly, and Kate felt it with an intensity that almost consumed her. Every time she looked at him, he was there, his eyes fixed on her, as if he were trying to decipher her. And the most disturbing part was that she felt like he could, as though he could see every hidden corner of her soul, every thought she tried to bury. At breakfast, while Emily spoke about something trivial, Kate could barely focus. Her eyes met Liam's from across the table, and the impact was immediate. He was silent, but his eyes, oh, his eyes. They didn't say a word, but Kate knew he was watching her in a way she couldn't ignore. She quickly looked away, but the feeling of him remained, like a flame that burned her skin. That same flame was always there. Sometimes she felt that if he looked at her for any longer, she might collapse. The tension was almost palpable, and Kate didn't know how to handle it. How to deal with the fact that every time he looked at her, her body reacted. Her heart raced, her breathing became shallow. There was something about Liam, something that pulled her in with a powerful force, but she didn't know if she could or should give in to it. That morning, after yet another of those exchanged glances, she stood up quickly and went out to the garden, wanting to breathe. Liam didn't follow her, but Kate felt his presence behind her. His warmth was everywhere, even without a touch, even without a word. It was there in the garden among the flowers and the gentle morning breeze that she finally spoke. "I don't know what's happening between us, Liam," she said, looking down, trying to control the feeling of being watched by him as though every word she said was being examined. Liam stood near her, his eyes fixed on her, but now he didn't come closer. He watched her in silence, as if trying to understand everything she was saying and everything she was feeling. "And what do you think is happening?" he asked, his voice deep and calm, but with a hint of something, perhaps challenge, perhaps sincerity. Kate sighed and took a step back. "I don't know, but something is wrong, Liam. I can't ignore the way you look at me, the way everything becomes so intense when you're near me." He took a step forward, now closer to her, but still keeping a respectful distance. "You think it's just the look?" he asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What else do you feel, Kate?" Kate's heart raced. She wanted to leave, to run away from that conversation, to escape everything she was feeling, but at the same time she wanted more. She wanted to understand what was happening between them. What did he mean by that? What was he expecting from her? I don't know. I just know that I can't keep doing this, looking at you and feeling." She hesitated, struggling with her words, but something inside her made her continue, "Feeling like I'm sinking deeper and deeper." Liam's voice became softer when he replied, "And what do you think that means, Kate? What do you want from me?" She looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to scream, to ask him to stop looking at her that way. But at the same time, she wanted him to touch her again, wanted more of what she had felt the night their lips had met. But instead, she took another step back, feeling the pain of not being able to decide. "I don't know what you expect from me. I can't give in to this, Liam," she said, her voice low but firm. "I can't get involved in this game. I can't be just another woman for you." Liam was silent for a moment, and Kate felt his gaze penetrate her once again. He hadn't moved, but his silence seemed heavier than any word. "I'm not playing, Kate," he said finally, his voice now low, almost vulnerable. "I'm not an easy man, but you're not like the others. His sentence hung in the air, incomplete, but the tension between them was even stronger now. Kate felt something tightening inside her, a mixture of fear and desire. She wanted to run, wanted to escape from the game Liam had started without her having a choice. "I know you're trying to protect yourself," he continued, his eyes still fixed on her. "But don't see me like all the other men. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't deny what I'm feeling." Kate felt her stomach twist. How could he say something like that and still maintain all this control? He didn't understand. He didn't understand what it was doing to her, what it was stirring inside her. She couldn't deny it anymore. She was attracted to him in a way she didn't know how to handle, and it terrified her. At that moment, Emily appeared at the door, interrupting the silence between them. She smiled, unaware of the tension, but her eyes quickly fixed on Kate, who was visibly nervous. "Are you okay, Kate?" Emily asked, concerned. Kate forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about some things." She looked at Liam, who was watching her silently, and felt a tightness in her chest. "You don't have to think alone, you know. If you need to talk, I'm here," Emily said, placing a comforting hand on Kate's shoulder. "But be careful with Liam. He can be a bit cold and distant sometimes. Don't get involved with him if it's not what you really want." Kate looked at Liam, her eyes now clouded with confusion and the need to understand what was happening. She wanted to speak, to express everything she was feeling, but the truth was she didn't know. She didn't know what she wanted anymore. And that scared her deeply. The dinner was happening in the dining room, but Kate wasn't paying attention. She was watching the moonlight illuminating the garden through the window. The voices and laughter of the few guests sounded distant, almost as if everything around her had disappeared. She felt empty, a sense of not belonging, and she knew exactly why. Liam. He was there, but he wasn't. She could feel his presence even when he didn't speak, even when he didn't look at her. He had the power to occupy the space without truly getting close. He hadn't approached her since their last encounter, and that left her with an unease she couldn't explain. It was when Liam stood up, leaving the others at the table, that she knew something was about to happen. He made a subtle gesture, inviting her with a look, and without thinking twice, Kate followed him to the garden, as if she had been pulled by an invisible magnet. The air was cool and calm, the sound of leaves in the wind was soft, and the moon bathed everything in its gentle light, creating an almost magical atmosphere. They stood in silence for a moment, both knowing that this silence was laden with something bigger, something they couldn't deny any longer. Kate looked at him, her body more aware than ever of his proximity. She could smell him, something intense and masculine, and her heart raced. Liam was close, very close, but he didn't touch her. There was palpable tension, as if any sudden movement would shatter the fragility between them. "Why did you bring me here?" Kate asked, her voice soft, but carrying a curiosity she couldn't hide. She knew the answer, but didn't want to admit it. Something inside her wanted him to speak, wanted him to break that silence that was becoming unbearable. Liam turned to her, his gaze as intense as ever. His eyes weren't empty, like the eyes of many men Kate had known. No, in his eyes there was something more, something real, something that scared her. "I don't know how to explain it," Liam replied, his voice rough, almost imperceptible. He took a step toward her, and the space between them narrowed. Kate could feel the beat of his heart, and that made her even more nervous. "I know I'm not like the others, but you're not like the others either, Kate. That drives me crazy." He said it with such sincerity that it made her stop for a moment, her thoughts racing. He was saying something she didn't want to hear, but somehow already knew. Liam was seeing her in a way no other man ever had, and that consumed her, made her vulnerable in a way she didn't know how to handle. I don't understand," Kate murmured, trying to push away the whirlwind of emotions she was feeling. She wanted more, but at the same time she wanted to run away. "What do you want from me, Liam? What's happening here?" Liam didn't answer immediately. He took another step closer, and now with his hand, he gently touched Kate's face. The sensation of his touch was like an electric shock that ran through her body, making her breath come quicker and her skin tingle. He was so close that she could feel the heat of his body. "I don't know what you want from me, Kate," he said, his voice now softer, but still full of an intensity that made Kate feel fragile. But I know what you awaken in me. I can't stay away from you. You take control away from me." She didn't know what to do with his words. He was being so sincere, so vulnerable, and that left her even more confused. She had always prided herself on being a woman in control, but in that moment it felt like everything was slipping through her fingers. Without thinking, Kate looked at him, the desire and pain in her eyes overflowing. "I can't be just another woman for you, Liam. I can't be one more on your list." Her voice trembled, but she didn't want to hide behind her words. "You're not like the others," Liam repeated, and that phrase hung in the air like a promise. "That's what scares me. Because you're not just someone I can have, you're someone I want to understand, someone I want to have for real." Before Kate could respond, Liam pulled her closer, his lips meeting hers in an unexpected yet deeply desired kiss. It wasn't just a physical kiss, but something deep, filled with emotion. Kate felt his body against hers, and the words she couldn't say got lost in the touch. She surrendered, feeling the need to be with him, to be touched by him, but also feeling lost in this overwhelming feeling. When the kiss ended, Kate pulled back slightly, her eyes still closed, as if trying to process everything that had just happened. Her body still felt the electricity from his lips, and her heart was still racing. She wanted to say something, but the words didn't come out. "Kate," Liam said softly, touching her face again, "I know this isn't easy. But please tell me you felt it too. Tell me it's not just desire, and that there's something more between us." Kate opened her eyes and looked at him with a mix of confusion and desire. She wanted to be honest with him, but the truth was, she didn't know what she was feeling. What she did know was that something inside her had changed, something she couldn't ignore anymore. "I don't know what's happening here, Liam," she finally replied, her voice now lower but full of a sincerity she couldn't deny. "But I know that something happened, and I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can handle everything you're offering me." Liam stayed silent for a moment, looking at her with an intensity that seemed to penetrate her soul. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but he also knew there was something real between them, something they both needed to understand. "We're not running, Kate," he said finally, his tone softer now, calmer. "We'll take the time it takes. I just need you to know I'm here, and I want you to let me show you what I'm feeling." Kate felt the weight of his words, but she also knew she had reached a point of no return. Something had changed, and she knew there was no going back. The night was silent, and the atmosphere was charged with something unusual, something difficult to define. Liam looked at Kate with an intensity she didn't know how to process, as if he were waiting for an answer she didn't know how to give. Dinner had already ended, and the other guests had retired. Emily had gone to her room, leaving them alone, but Kate felt that the solitude between them wasn't simple. "Kate?" Liam spoke her name again with a rare softness in his voice. He was still standing, just a few steps away from her, but the distance felt larger than ever. The air was thick, and Kate could feel the tension rising between them, as if something were about to break at any moment. He approached her with a calculated calm. When he was close enough, she noticed that he didn't touch her, but his eyes were fixed on hers, waiting for a response, waiting for her to give in to what they were building, a connection that seemed to crumble any resistance she might have had. "I need you to tell me what you want, Kate," he said, his tone deep and grave, but with a certain softness she hadn't expected. "I can leave now, if that's what you want. I won't force anything. But if you say yes, the night will be ours. There's no turning back after that. Are you ready to make that choice?" Kate swallowed hard, her heart pounding so loudly it felt like a drum inside her chest. She knew what he wanted, she knew what he was asking. But it wasn't simple. She wasn't just any woman, she wasn't an easy woman. But there was something about him, something that drew her in indescribably, something that made her want to break all the barriers she had built over the years. She looked at him, trying to understand her own feelings. He was there, standing in front of her, with the door ajar to something she had never experienced before. He was offering her a choice, and the responsibility was hers. Kate knew that, even though he seemed immune to the world around him, there was something vulnerable about Liam, something she couldn't identify, but felt deeply. "Yes," she replied, her voice low but determined. "Yes." Liam didn't hesitate. He gently pulled her toward him, his arms wrapping around her with a strength that wasn't aggressive, but communicated a quiet confidence, a confidence that made her feel safe, as if nothing could hurt her. He guided her to the bedroom with a firm step, not in a rush, but not losing control of the situation. Kate's heart raced, but her body was already giving in to the sensation of him, to the touch he offered without words. Each step seemed heavier than the last, as if she were walking down an unfamiliar path, but at the same time something inside her told her there was no choice. Inside the room, the environment was illuminated only by the soft light of the night, creating shadows that danced on the walls. The air was thick with the scent of flowers drifting in through the window, but there was also the scent of something else, something intimate and exclusive to the two of them. The sound of their breathing filled the silence. Liam looked at her with an intensity that made Kate feel a whirlwind inside her. She wanted to say something, but the words seemed to get lost before they could even be said. Liam moved even closer, until their bodies were almost touching, and he kissed her. It wasn't an impulsive kiss. It wasn't fast. It was as if he were savoring every inch of her, as if he were giving in, even if just for a moment, to something deeper than the surface. Liam's kiss was intense, but also careful, as if he knew she needed time, that she needed to feel each gesture, each touch. Kate felt her body surrender without resistance. Her hands began to search for his body, as if she were trying to understand everything he represented. Liam's skin was warm against hers, and she felt the power of his touch, but also the gentleness, as if he were protecting something inside himself, something she still couldn't comprehend. When he pulled her onto the bed, their bodies finally connected more completely. It was as if she were no longer Kate, the ordinary woman, but something greater, something deeper, something she had never experienced. Liam touched her with an unexpected tenderness, as if each movement were a discovery, as if he were learning to love her in a way he didn't understand. Her skin responded to his touch, and every part of her body seemed to answer him, as if it had been made for that moment. The desire she felt wasn't just physical. There was something emotional, something that transcended touch and skin. She felt a connection with him, as if he were the key to something she didn't know existed within herself. The night they shared wasn't just a night of passion, but a night of discoveries. Each gesture, each touch was laden with hidden meanings, unspoken emotions, vulnerability, and desire. Kate realized that there was more to Liam than he let on. There was pain, a mark of something he had lost, and even in the act of surrendering to her, he was shedding something much deeper. "I'm not the man you think I am, Kate," Liam said after a while, his voice rough but sincere. He was lying beside her, looking at her with an intensity she didn't know if she could withstand. "But with you I feel more human." Kate looked at him, feeling something tighten in her heart. She had no words to respond, but she knew that their surrender wasn't just physical. They had given themselves, not just to their bodies, but to their souls, in a night full of complex emotions. She realized that behind the facade of the dominant and mysterious man, there was a broken man, a man who, perhaps, was also searching for something. And as much as she tried to protect herself, something in her heart told her she was willing to lose herself in this love, even knowing there was more behind the layers he showed. Kate woke to the soft sound of sunlight streaming through the window. She didn't move immediately, still immersed in the warmth of the previous night. Her senses were dazed, as if she were in a dream, and for a brief moment she wished it were all real, that the intensity of the feelings would stretch beyond that night. But as she opened her eyes, emptiness took over her, and reality hit her hard. Liam was standing, already dressed, his face serious and distant. There was no smile, no warmth, as she had imagined there would be after a night of such deep surrender. He didn't look at her the same way, as if there was nothing between them. Kate felt a stab in her chest as she saw him this way, as if everything that had happened had been nothing but a fleeting moment for him, something that no longer made sense. She sat up on the bed, covering her body with the sheet, trying to understand what was happening. Her eyes were still fixed on him, waiting for him to say something, to explain the sudden distance, but he remained silent. The weight of those unsaid words hung in the air. Liam finally broke the silence. His voice was firm, but there was something in it that sounded empty. "Kate, I'm not the man you need. You deserve someone better, someone cleaner." His words cut through Kate like a sharp blade. She wanted to react, to shout, to ask what he meant by that, but the words vanished in her throat. What was he saying? Cleaner? What did he mean by that? She looked at him, her eyes full of confusion, trying to understand what he was trying to communicate. There was no love, no tenderness, only a vast distance between them. She felt like a stranger in her own life, as if he had erased the night they shared from his memory. Liam looked at her without expression, his face impassive, as if he had transformed into someone else. Kate felt the emptiness expand inside her, a hole she didn't know how to fill. She wanted to speak, to explode, but nothing came out of her mouth. She was confused, hurt, and lost. The man who had touched her so deeply the night before was now acting as though nothing had happened, as if it was all irrelevant, as if he were distancing himself from something that frightened him. "Liam," Kate finally spoke, her voice trembling. She wanted to understand, needed to understand, but the words didn't come out the way she wanted. "What do you mean by that? What happened? The night didn't mean anything to you?" He looked at her for a long moment as if weighing his words. "It meant something, it meant everything, but that doesn't change what I am, Kate." He took a step back as if distancing himself even further from her, and Kate's heart sank. He was withdrawing emotionally and she didn't know what to do to stop it. "I can't be the man you need, Kate. You deserve more than this, more than I can offer you. You deserve someone who doesn't have the baggage I do, someone lighter." He avoided looking at her, his eyes fixed on the floor, as if trying to escape the pain of facing the reality. Kate didn't know what more to say. What else could she do in front of someone so closed off, so distant, who had touched her so deeply but now was retreating as if it were possible to simply erase what had happened? She felt something break inside her, as if all the trust, all the desire she had felt for him disintegrated before that unspoken rejection. She was lost. She looked at him one last time, trying to decipher if he was being sincere or if it was all just a facade. But the distance between them was too vast for her to understand. He was pulling away physically and emotionally, and Kate didn't know how to fight against it. "You can't do this to me, Liam." She spoke more quietly, the pain etched on her face. I can't be just another. I can't be someone for you if you're not going to let me be who I am." He watched her in silence, and for a moment, Kate thought he might finally approach. But instead, he turned his back and walked toward the door. "I'm leaving," he said, his voice now softer but full of something Kate couldn't identify. Maybe it was guilt, maybe resignation. "I think you're right. I'm not what you deserve." And with those words, he left the room, leaving Kate alone. The door closed with a click, and as she was left by herself, the emptiness inside her spread like a shadow, swallowing everything around her. She collapsed onto the bed, feeling the tears begin to form. She didn't know why she was crying, didn't know what was happening to her. She had never felt so confused, so lost. The night that should have been a revelation had now turned into a nightmare of doubts and distances. She wanted to scream, wanted to say something, but she was paralyzed. She closed her eyes trying to understand, but deep down, she knew that Liam's distance was more than physical. It was emotional, a barrier he had built between them, and now Kate didn't know how to tear it down. The day was overcast, the rain softly tapping against the windows of the mansion. Kate sat on the couch, her eyes fixed on nothing. Her mind was a mess, full of unanswered questions, and the pain in her chest seemed to grow with every passing minute. Liam's distance hurt her more than she wanted to admit. He had pulled away from her, and she didn't know why. He had been clear, but there was something in his eyes, something she couldn't ignore. It was when, almost absent-mindedly, her eyes fell on Emily's open laptop, placed on the coffee table, that Kate hesitated. She knew she shouldn't, but curiosity took over her. Something inside her told her she needed to understand. She needed to know what was going on with Liam, what lay behind that cold, distant facade. She glanced at Emily's laptop, the unsaid words in her mind pushing her to act. Emily wasn't home at the moment, and with a tight feeling in her chest, Kate decided to open the computer. The screen lit up, and the first thing that appeared was Emily's document folder. Kate hesitated for a moment, but something pushed her forward. She clicked on the folder, and that's when the truth began to unravel. Inside the folder, Kate found a series of documents and images. First, there were old photos of Liam, some from when he was younger, more smiling, without the tough facade he carried now. In some of the pictures, he seemed surrounded by friends, but there was something in his eyes that didn't match the image of a happy man. Kate felt a tight knot in her stomach as she looked at the photos. She couldn't fully understand, but she knew there was something much deeper there. When she opened another file, a news article appeared on the screen. It was a story from a few years ago, talking about a scandal involving Liam. The headline was anything but subtle. Billionaire involved in scandal. Liam Carter accused of fraud and abuse of power. Kate froze as she read the words. She had always known he was a complicated person, but she never imagined there was such a dark past behind him. The text described a series of accusations against him: financial fraud, business manipulation, and even abuse of power. But what really hit her was the tone of the article. He was portrayed as someone without morals, someone who used his money and power to control others. The Liam she knew didn't match this image, but the man in the article seemed to be him. Kate tried to breathe, trying to digest the words, but the pain inside her only grew. What else would she discover? She continued scrolling down the article and then found a section that made her heart stop. Liam Carter, accused of being responsible for the bankruptcy of a small family business, took the case to court without showing any remorse. Witnesses claim that he completely ignored the consequences of his actions, destroying the lives of dozens of people with his selfishness. Kate closed her eyes, feeling the pressure rise in her head. She knew she couldn't judge someone solely by the mistakes of their past, but the words still echoed in her mind. Liam, the man she had shared such an intimate night with, was the same man who had destroyed so many lives. What was she supposed to do with this? With trembling hands, Kate clicked on another document. This time it was an old radio interview where Liam had spoken about his past. He sounded so cold, so distant in the recording. "I don't care what people think of me," he had said, his voice rigid, as if he were trying to convince himself of something. "I am who I am, and nothing can change that." Kate couldn't continue listening. She felt a wave of nausea sweep over her. She didn't know what to do with all of this. The Liam she knew seemed so different from the man on the radio, the man she had seen in the newspaper clippings. He seemed like someone who was hiding in his own pain, in his own mistakes. It was as if he had gotten lost somewhere, and guilt was consuming him. She couldn't bear the pain inside her anymore. She wanted to run to him, to hold him and tell him everything would be okay, that they could get through this together. But at the same time, she was scared. Scared of what he might say, scared of what he might do if she revealed what she knew. But one thing was clear. She couldn't ignore his pain. She couldn't look at him and see him destroy himself from the inside without trying to do something. There was something in Liam, something that made her want to save him. Even knowing that he would probably never let anyone close. He would shut himself off, like he always did. And she knew that. But Kate didn't want to give up on him. She didn't want to leave him to carry that burden alone. She was in love with him, and that in some way made her stronger. She didn't know what she would do with everything she had just discovered, but one thing she knew for sure: she couldn't just sit still. She needed to act. She needed to talk to Liam. She needed to understand his pain, his guilt, and maybe help heal him. He was lost, and now more than ever, Kate knew that their destinies were intertwined. She didn't know what the future held, but she was willing to fight to find out. The sound of dumbbells clanging on the floor echoed through the silent mansion. Kate was walking down the hallway, lost in her thoughts, when she heard the noise coming from the gym. Something made her stop at the door. She didn't know what was pulling her there, but her curiosity led her to enter. The sight she found stopped her dead in her tracks. Liam was alone, training with intensity. He was exhausted, sweaty, his breath heavy and labored. The force with which he lifted the weights reflected not just his physical strength, but the internal battle she knew he was fighting. Kate watched for a moment, seeing the tense muscles and the tired eyes of Liam, but there was something more there, something she recognized. He was destroying himself, sinking into something deeper than physical effort. He was trying to forget the things he couldn't control, the mistakes of the past, the pain he hid behind the facade of toughness. And in that moment, Kate knew she couldn't watch this without doing something. She walked into the gym, moving toward him with determination but also with sensitivity, as if she understood how thin the line was between helping him and pushing him too hard. He didn't notice her approach until she spoke, her voice soft, yet filled with a quiet authority. "You can't hide from me, Liam." Her voice was calm, but there was a firmness in it that made him stop immediately. "You can run from everything else, but you can't run from yourself." Liam didn't look at her right away. He stopped training, his breath heavy, and the tension in his shoulders intensified. He didn't want her there. He knew she was seeing him, that she was seeing more than he wanted to show. He tried to look away, but Kate wouldn't let him. She watched him intently, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not someone you should know, Kate," he said with a hoarse voice, still trying to maintain distance. He looked down at the floor as if it were easier than facing what she was trying to show him. "I'm not ready for this. I can't give you what you want." Kate didn't move, didn't step back. She knew what he was doing, knew he was trying to push her away. But she also knew that wasn't truly what he wanted. He was lost, trapped in his own maze of pain and fear. And as always, he was trying to push away the one person who seemed willing to understand. "I'm not here for the man you were, Liam," she said quietly, her voice full of emotion. "I'm here for the man you are now. The man who touched me. The man who, behind all that hardness, is hurting. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be you." He raised his eyes to hers, and what Kate saw in his gaze paralyzed her. There was pain there, a pain so deep it seemed to pierce through her being. She knew him now, knew what he was hiding, and it made her feel something even stronger. He was broken, but that didn't mean he had lost everything. He could still be saved. And Kate believed that. She believed in him. Liam took a step toward her, but at the same time he recoiled. He was fighting against his own feelings, against the need to protect himself, to hide. "I'm not the person you think I am, Kate," he said, his voice trembling. I don't know what to do with this, with you. I'm so far from being worthy of something like this." "Liam," Kate whispered, her voice soft but filled with an intensity he couldn't deny. "You don't need to be perfect. I don't need you to be. You just need to be real. You need to stop hiding from who you really are." She took a step toward him, and this time, he didn't stop her. They were so close now, and Kate could feel the pressure building between them, a mix of desire, fear, and the need for connection. She gently touched his face, and as she felt the softness of his skin, Liam closed his eyes, almost as if he were allowing himself to feel for the first time in a long time. When he opened his eyes again, the vulnerability she saw there made her heart race. It was as if he were asking for help without saying a word, as if for the first time he was allowing himself to be who he really was. He was tired of fighting against himself, and Kate knew he didn't want to fight her anymore. He wanted to surrender, wanted to be touched in a way that was more than just physical. "I don't know if I can do this, Kate," Liam said, the pain in his voice clear now. "I don't know if I can, but I can't hide from you anymore." He pulled her into him with a force that wasn't aggressive, but carried the need to finally give in. When their lips met, it wasn't like before. It wasn't a kiss of desire, but of surrender. It wasn't about what they wanted, but about what they were willing to let go of. Kate felt his pain, his struggle, and his vulnerability. It was something deeper, something real. Their kiss transformed into something Kate could never have imagined. A complete surrender, both emotional and physical, a fusion of two broken hearts trying to heal. When they finally pulled apart, Liam's eyes were shining with something Kate had never seen before. True surrender. He looked at her, his lips trembling, his eyes filled with raw emotion he had never shown. "Don't leave me," he whispered, his voice low but full of need. "Please, don't leave me." Kate felt his pain pierce her chest. She knew that this was the first time he was truly surrendering, not just physically but emotionally. He was allowing himself to be loved, allowing himself to be vulnerable. And, as frightening as it was, she knew there was no going back for either of them. She kissed him again, but this time it was different. There was no more fear. There was only surrender, the certainty that together they could face anything. From the moment Liam asked Kate not to leave him, Something within him began to change. The tension that had always kept him closed off and distant slowly began to dissipate. The pain he had carried for so long, the pain he had insisted on hiding, started to yield to Kate's sincerity. He didn't know what would happen with him, with them, but he was willing to try. He was willing to allow himself to be touched by something beyond guilt and fear. Kate noticed this before he even said a word. He started smiling more often. It wasn't a forced smile, nor one from someone trying to please. It was a genuine smile, the kind that only appears when a soul begins to break free from a weight that seemed impossible to carry. He smiled at her, but also smiled at himself, as if for the first time in a long time he was starting to like who he was. They spent more time together, not in public, but in the small refuge they had created between them. The outside world seemed distant, as if there was nothing more important than the moments they shared. Kate began to notice small changes in Liam, things he hadn't shown before. He was starting to sleep better, letting go of the constant fear that had always kept him on edge. He was no longer the cold, distant man she had met. He was allowing himself to rest, to be vulnerable. That late afternoon, after a peaceful day when they had shared laughs and honest conversations, Liam sat with Kate on the living room couch. The atmosphere was cozy, the soft sound of rain outside creating a sense of calm. He looked at her with an intensity she already knew, but this time there was something different in his gaze. It wasn't just desire, it was a depth of emotions, a silent understanding. "Kate," Liam began, his voice soft but filled with something meaningful. He leaned toward her, his hands still a little trembling but his eyes fixed on her as if he were searching for something. "I don't know how to thank you. You've helped me in a way I never imagined. You've allowed me to see a path where I only saw darkness." Kate smiled, lightly touching his hand. She didn't need words to know that this meant more than any physical gesture. She knew he was learning to be vulnerable, to allow himself to feel something real. He still had his internal battles, but he was beginning to open up to a different world, a world of possibilities, of healing. "You don't need to thank me, Liam," she replied, her voice soft but full of confidence. "I only did what anyone would do for someone they love, and I love you. All you need to do is be yourself, and you're doing that now." That night, the connection between them was deeper than ever. They didn't talk about Liam's past, nor the demons he still fought. Instead, they simply were there together, sharing a moment of pure intimacy. Liam held her with a strength different from what she had known. It wasn't a strength of protection or control, but a strength of surrender, of trust. He was allowing himself to be who he truly was, without the fear of rejection. "Kate," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I never knew what it was to love. I knew what desire was, what possessiveness was, but I never knew what it meant to be with someone for real. With you, I'm learning. Every day I learn more. And every time you look at me, I feel like you see me in a way no one ever has. That scares me, but it also gives me courage." Kate stayed silent for a moment, absorbing his words. She felt the warmth of his closeness, the touch of his hands, and realized that their trust was becoming something solid, something real. "I've always believed that the most beautiful things come from the deepest wounds," she said with a calm smile. "And we're creating something beautiful, Liam. It doesn't matter what the future holds. What matters is the now. And right now, we're here, together." That night, Kate and Liam surrendered to love in a way they had never experienced before. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, it was spiritual. Each kiss, each touch, was laden with unspoken promises and a growing sense of complicity. They didn't need words to know they were in sync, that somehow something deep was forming between them. In the following days, Liam continued to change, not in drastic ways, but in small gestures that spoke more than any visible transformation. He was more present, more attentive, more willing to give in to the love Kate offered him. They began to live in a lighter, happier way, as if they were finally creating a new chapter together. Kate watched him and felt that with each passing day, he was becoming freer, more willing to let go of the chains of the past. There was lightness now, something she had never imagined was possible for him, and she knew that, although the road ahead was still long, they were ready to move forward together. They shared small and large promises, but all were real. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but something had bloomed between them, and for the first time Liam felt he was no longer alone. He had Kate by his side, and that made all the difference. He was learning to love with her, and in some way, that made him stronger. Kate never imagined that the love blossoming between her and Liam would be something to hide, but over the last few days, they had created a small refuge where they could be real, away from curious eyes and judgment. They loved each other in silence, in secret, and for a while that was enough. But the truth, as always, proved harder to keep in the shadows. It all started when Emily appeared, her eyes filled with a fury Kate had never seen before. She entered the room with an electric energy, speechless, only an expression of shock and pain on her face. "Kate," Emily said, her voice choked. "I know what's happening between you and my brother." Kate stood still, her body tense. She didn't know what to say. Guilt spread across her skin, but she didn't know what Emily knew, and the thought of being confronted about something so intimate and delicate made her feel exposed. "Emily, I can explain." Kate tried, but her friend interrupted her with a sharp gesture. "No, Kate, I don't know what you were thinking, but this is a betrayal." Emily's eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was full of bitterness. "I trusted you. I trusted both of you, and now I see that I was completely wrong." Kate didn't know what to say. The pain of seeing a years-long friendship broken by something she didn't know how to handle was overwhelming. She had surrendered to love with Liam, and she knew he loved her too. But Emily's reaction, the feeling of being betrayed by her friend, was unbearable. "Emily, it's not what you think," Kate tried again, desperately. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just what?" Emily interrupted, her voice now full of anger that Kate barely recognized. "Just fell in love with my brother? Just destroyed the trust I had in you? Do you know what this does to people, Kate? Do you know how much it hurts?" Kate looked at her but didn't know how to respond. She knew she was in love with Liam, that he had touched her in a way no one ever had. But the pain in Emily's eyes was palpable, and that made her feel more guilty than she ever imagined possible. At that moment, Liam entered the room, hearing the raised voices. His gaze immediately fixed on the tension between the two women, and Kate saw something change in his face. He looked tired, as if he were carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. But when he saw Emily's expression, guilt overtook him. "Emily, I can explain everything," Liam began, his voice low but firm. "I didn't want her to know, but I can't hide it anymore." Emily looked at him with eyes full of hurt, but Kate's expression was one of confusion. She knew he had something to say, something important, but she didn't know what else could happen. "You think you can just get away with this? Do whatever you want and no one will get hurt?" Emily continued, her voice now broken. "You're making me lose everything we've built together. You, my brother, the man I've always admired, now you're betraying me too." Liam looked at Kate, the weight of pain in his eyes. He knew that, in some way, everything that was happening was his fault. He had closed himself off, hidden, and now everything was crumbling around him. He turned to Kate, trying to reach her with his eyes, but she was pulling away from him, as if distance was the only way to escape the pain. In the middle of the tension, Kate's phone rang. She picked it up absent-mindedly, not knowing what to expect, but when she read the message that appeared on the screen, her heart stopped. "Monica is pregnant with Liam." It was a message from an unknown source, but the content left her paralyzed. Kate tried to understand, but the confusion only grew. Monica, the woman she knew, was part of Liam's past. Kate felt the world spin. How could this be possible? How did this fit into the reality she was living? Before she could digest the information, her phone rang again, this time with a call. She answered automatically. Monica's voice, clear and cold, came through on the other end. "Kate," Monica said with a tone of challenge, "I know you're with Liam, but I have something you need to know. I'm pregnant with him, and you know what that means, don't you? He's not going to choose you. He's going to come back to me. I'm his woman." Kate felt as if the ground had opened beneath her feet. How could this be happening? How could this be real? She looked at Liam, but his face was somber, full of guilt. He was paralyzed, unable to speak, as if he knew the storm was coming and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "I knew I couldn't trust you," Kate said, her voice breaking with pain. She looked at him with a mixture of anger and sadness. I knew it was too good to be true. Liam tried to approach her, but she pulled away, the weight of the lie and the betrayal heavy in her heart. He reached out his hand, but she rejected it with a swift motion. "Kate, please, let me explain," he pleaded. But his words didn't reach her heart. She couldn't hear the empty promises anymore. What he had done, what he had hidden, was now clear. He had lied to her. "No, Liam, not anymore," she said, her voice firm and filled with pain. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be deceived again." And with those words she walked away, leaving Liam behind, lost in his own scandal. She knew she couldn't stay there, in the lie he had created, in the storm he had unleashed. The day of the business event arrived, and the mansion was in a frenzy of preparation. The red carpet was rolled out, the guests began to arrive, and the press was in full force, as it always was at Liam's events. But that day, everything felt different. Liam felt an overwhelming weight on his shoulders, as if he were on the verge of making a huge decision, one that would change his life and Kate's future forever. Kate stood in the corner of the room, observing the hustle and bustle. She still felt the pain of the discovery, the weight of Monica's words and the rejection from Liam. But something inside her told her there was more to this man than he was letting on. He had hurt her, yes, but he had also shown a vulnerability that she knew was real. Now, amidst all the ostentation and wealth, she wondered if he would finally be able to do the right thing, to free himself from the chains of his past. Meanwhile, Liam stood on stage, making the final preparations for his big speech in front of the press and investors. He was surrounded by people who only saw him as the billionaire, the powerful man, the unbeatable businessman. They saw him as someone immune to feelings, someone who had built his fortune at the cost of his humanity. But Liam knew that had to change. He knew he couldn't continue hiding, that the only way to free himself and Kate was to show his vulnerability, to break the chains of his past. The event began, and the press was attentive, camera flashes popping like lightning. Liam walked up to the stage, and for a moment, all he could see were the sea of faces waiting for his next word, the next strategic move he would make to ensure his business's success. But at that moment, something inside him shifted. He looked at the audience, at the faces of the investors, but it was Kate he saw. She was there, her eyes fixed on him, and in that instant, he knew the choice was in front of him. He took the microphone, his heart pounding in his chest, his hands sweating. He took a deep breath, feeling the tension in the air. He had a decision to make, a difficult choice, but he knew he couldn't keep hiding anymore. He had to be true to himself. "Good evening, everyone," Liam began, his voice resonating in the large room. "As you all know, this event is a significant milestone for our business. But there's something much more important that I need to share with all of you, something I can no longer hide. Something that until today I tried to push away, trying to live a life of success without any real meaning." He paused, and the room fell silent, watching him intently. Kate, who was sitting in the audience, felt her stomach twist. She didn't know what to expect. What was he about to say? She didn't know, but she felt that in that moment something was about to change between them. "I have a love in my life, and maybe many of you won't understand what I'm about to say, but it's the truth," Liam continued, his voice now more firm, without hesitation. "I love Kate, and she is not like the other women in my life. I can't hide this from you anymore. I can't hide what I'm feeling." Kate felt her heart race. What was he doing? How was he giving himself so publicly, so vulnerably? She looked at him, her emotions conflicted, but something inside her told her that he was finally freeing himself, giving in to something greater than wealth and power. Liam looked at Kate, his eyes piercing into hers. "I don't care what this will mean for my business, for my family, or for society. I've already lost everything once before, and if I have to lose it all again, then I'll do it. Because to me, Kate is worth more than any fortune I've built." The silence in the room was palpable. The audience was stunned, unsure of how to react. To all of them, Liam was the unbeatable businessman, someone who put career above all else, above any personal relationship. But now here he was breaking all the barriers, throwing away the conventions and the image he had built his whole life around. He was telling the world that love, true love, meant more to him than anything money could buy. I choose Kate, and if I have to lose all of you, lose my fortune and my image, then I will do that, because she is what really matters. She showed me that life can be more than just a race for riches. She made me see that without love, without the ability to give myself to someone, everything I have means nothing. Kate felt the tears welling in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She was paralyzed by Liam's words, the weight of what he was saying. He was risking everything, everything he had built, everything he was, and he was doing it for her. Liam, Kate whispered, her voice choked with emotion. She stood up from the audience, her steps hesitant, but her heart pounding with a strength she didn't know she had. When he saw her approaching, he smiled a genuine smile, and for the first time, Kate saw the man he truly was, the man she loved. "You are worth more than anything, Kate," he said, his voice filled with truth, "and I can't live without you." She walked toward him, and they met on stage, where the weight of the world seemed to have been lifted from his shoulders. They embraced, and for the first time there were no doubts, no fears. Freedom for both of them began right there. They had broken the chains of the past, and now they were ready to begin anew. The world around them might fall apart, but they knew that together nothing else mattered. The life that Liam and Kate had created together now felt different from everything they had lived before. They had left behind mansions, parties, glamour, and the curious stares of high society. Instead, they chose a simple, modest, and true new beginning. In the countryside, a small house but full of life became the setting for this new phase of their lives. The house didn't have luxury or visible wealth, but it had something more precious: peace. They woke up early, the smell of fresh coffee filling the house, while the sound of trees around them filled the air with an unexpected calm. Liam, who had once seemed distant and closed off, now devoted himself to small moments with Kate. He tended to the garden, mowed the lawn, and even with his fingers dirty from the soil, she saw in him a renewed man, someone learning to live with the simplicity he had never known he needed. Kate, for her part, found joy in the small things of daily life. She took care of the house with affection, always making sure to infuse love into each task. Nothing was more important than being there, with Liam, sharing every moment. They had gotten lost in a world of rules and expectations, but now in the countryside, they lived in a reality built solely by them. It was as if their love had matured, like a tree whose roots had finally dug deep. They were no longer concerned with what the world thought, but with what they could build together. Their love wasn't limited to the physical. It had a spiritual depth that connected them in ways words couldn't describe. Kate knew that, with him, she had found something eternal. In the months that followed, Kate noticed changes in herself. Her body was changing, and she knew why before even realizing it. She was pregnant. Her heart leaped in her chest when the pregnancy tests confirmed what she had felt. She knew that this news would change everything, but she wasn't scared. The life that Liam and she were building now was solid, made of love and trust. They were ready to face this new step, as they always had, together. On the morning Kate discovered she was pregnant, she found Liam in the garden as always, taking care of the plants with a peaceful smile on his face. He seemed at peace, but there was something in his gaze that told her he was waiting for something. When she approached him, they exchanged a silent glance, and Kate knew it was the moment. "Liam," she said, her voice soft but full of emotion, "I have something to tell you." He turned to her, his eyes focused on her with a tenderness she had never seen before. "What happened, Kate?" he asked, his tone gentle but attentive. She held his hand, her eyes shining with the happiness she could barely contain. "I'm pregnant, Liam. We're going to be parents." Liam stood still for a moment, as if the world had stopped for him. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. He simply pulled her close, holding her gently, as if he never wanted to let her go. "Kate, you give me everything I need to be happy. I don't know how to thank you. I don't deserve this, but I'll do my best. For you, for our child. I promise." Kate held him tighter, her body and soul feeling the depth of that promise. "You already do more than I ever expected. I just want to be with you, live with you, build a life together." Their happiness wasn't from a perfect life, but it was genuine, built every day. The difficulties and challenges were far away, but they were no longer a burden. Now they were simply tests for their love, which seemed to grow with every moment they spent together. Time in the countryside wasn't easy, but it was theirs, and that was what mattered most. It was on the anniversary of the day Kate discovered she was pregnant that Liam took her to the garden. He was silent, his hands in his pockets, but his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart race. Kate looked at him confused, but he gently pulled her close. He kneeled in front of her, his face serious, but his eyes full of an emotion she had never imagined. "Kate," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "you've given me everything I needed. I was a lost man without direction until you came into my life. You taught me how to love, how to be vulnerable, how to be real. Now, you're carrying our child. And with all of that, you've given me a gift I never thought I deserved. Because of that, I want to ask you something. I want to make this life we're building official." He pulled out a small ring from his pocket, a simple but meaningful symbol of the commitment he was about to make. "Kate, will you accept to be my wife? Will you make me the happiest man in the world?" Kate looked at him, tears already forming. But this time, they were tears of happiness. She didn't need long words or grand gestures. What she had with Liam was real. They had rebuilt themselves, found each other in their flaws and fragility, and now they were ready to face whatever the future brought. "Yes, Liam. Yes," she replied, her voice full of emotion. He placed the ring on her finger, and for the first time, the two of them felt whole. The forbidden love that had started in the kitchen on that intense and confusing night was now a real, human, deep, and eternal story. The future was ahead of them, and Kate knew that nothing could ever separate them. What they had built together was something that nothing or no one could destroy. What started as a forbidden love transformed into something eternal, shaped by vulnerability, pain, and redemption. Liam and Kate learned that, to love truly, one must shed everything they think they know and surrender without reservations. Together, they rebuilt their lives and became whole. Now the question remains, can love truly heal all wounds, or is there something even deeper to be discovered in mutual surrender? If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us, where are you listening from? Your support allows us to keep bringing stories like this.